Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today in this community chat. We are out of Montefiore Nyack Hospital. I am your host, Sandra Arevalo, Director of Community Health and Wellness. And today we're going to be talking about a very sensitive, though special and close to the heart of many of us topic, which is about pregnancy and infant loss. Oftentimes, we don't give enough attention to this topic that can really change someone's life. It's very sensitive. Some people don't pay the sensibility that it deserves, but for some other people, it can be very hard and really, be life changing. So in order to talk about this topic, we have an expert here today, and she's Leilani Yesar. And Leilani,
yes,
tell us a little bit about yourself first, how you got into this, because this is not everybody does this. So let's talk a little bit first about you and how you got into this journey of helping people with pregnancy and infant loss, and then we're gonna get into the topic.
Okay. So my name is Leilani Izarita. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us, and I'm glad that Sandra has asked me to do this presentation. I don't consider myself, I'm an expert within myself, for myself. I'm still learning. Actually, I'm not even an expert in myself because I'm still learning myself. But I am familiar with this topic because I've experienced my own miscarriages for the past, I don't know how many years. My own, I've experienced an fertility journey for almost 20, no, yeah, almost like 15 years, with miscarriages or, dealing with infertility. And I decided that I wanted to become a pregnancy and infant loss advocate because of my experience and because of the things that I dealt with in terms of systems, and just being an overall support system for individuals who are going through the same thing. So that's how I got here.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Leilani, because I know that it's very close to you too, and the fact that you're putting yourself out there, with your own experience to be able to help a lot of people. It just speaks very big about you. Like it just speaks, your good heart as well, and how strong you are, because oftentimes these are things that we don't easily talk about. And the fact that you're putting yourself out there, I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for doing it. And okay, you have a presentation for us, so feel free to share your screen at this point.
Going to share my screen, and I'm gonna present.
Go ahead. And for our attendees, if you have any questions, just start writing your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and that way we're gonna keep the conversation going. So Leilani, I'm gonna go behind the curtain for a little bit.
Okay.
If you see me popping on the screen, is because we have a question. Okay?
No worries.
Or a comment.
Yes, if any person has a question or comment in the middle of my presentation, please feel free to just put it in there. And Sandra, please feel free to stop me in the midst of it, because that's how I flow. That's how I do presentations.
Yeah, trust me, I will. And we already have one comment, and it says, very sorry for your loss, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will not be remiss if I don't say this, because if I tear up, if I cry or whatever, it's because I am honoring myself, or I'm honoring my lost souls, my babies, in this process. This moment, this everything is because of them that I am able to do this work. So I do honor them all the time, and also because this subject is very sensitive, very sensitive, because I most recently, in the last month and a half, lost my twins at 20 weeks. So things are very raw. But I give thanks that I am able to speak about these things and not be in a deep space of grief, because I am grieving, but I'm not in my deep space of grief anymore.
Yeah.
So
Sorry to
um,
hear that. I knew that you were with baby, and sorry.
it's okay. Thank you. So coping with pregnancy and infant loss. Here we go. I did say a little bit about myself. I am the owner of River Rise LLC, which I started to really bring about just talking about wellness and really giving space for this work that I do with being a pregnancy and infant loss advocate. Again, I am a mother of 8 beautiful souls, and I have over 15 years experience in being a community advocate. So I'm in the process of reading a book. And it's called What God is Honored Here. And this was like a beautiful quote in the introduction part. And it says, I had new I had new knowledge. I'm sorry. I had new knowledge of how love can cleave you from the inside out, waiting and dreaming and hoping for a baby to take a breath who can never take a breath, waiting for the truth to become something living. And to me, that exemplified everything that I felt, and I know that people I've spoken with felt like this is just you're waiting for somebody, for this child to take a breath or to take another breath or to come out your stomach, and it's just these are the moments. I want to kind of backtrack, and I apologize, but I want to honor every person who is in this space with me right now, and knowing that this is a hot, heavy subject, knowing that um whatever space that you're in, whether you have had a miscarriage or you had an infant loss, or if you are a person who knew somebody or you're just here to learn, I honor you in this space because it is what it is. So we're going to talk about I'm going to give the definitions of bereavement, grief, pregnancy loss. Then we're going to go into how it affects the individuals who have gone through it, and the family members. And then lastly, how to cope and some resources. So how we define bereavement is the state of or fact of being bereaved or deprived of something or someone. Infant loss can be defined as low birth weights, preterm births, the baby could have died of birth defects, um, maternal pregnancy complications. You could have had an infant loss from what is called SID, sudden infant death syndrome. The baby could have died of injuries or suffocation, and there's some unknown type of infant losses out there and other infant losses, but those are the ones that I've listed. In regards to pregnancy loss, abortion is considered pregnancy loss, miscarriage, stillbirth. A miscarriage is any pregnancy that is from conception to um, 20 weeks. Stillbirth is any pregnancy after 20 weeks, and the mother had lost the baby during pregnancy. There's fatal diagnosis. I've had I can't remember which number of my souls, which number it was, but my River was a fatal diagnosis in terms of she had Turner syndrome. So she died in my belly because of her genetic defects. There's ectopic pregnancies where the pregnancy stops and grows outside of the fallopian tubes and in the uterus or elsewhere in the body, and which can also be deadly to the mother if it's not known or if it's not taken care of at an early time. There are failed transfers from IVF or insemination, and I've experienced the failed transfer. And then when you have the definition of grief is deep and poignant distress caused by or as if by bereavement. I will also include that I did not include on the slide is the fertility journey, which a lot of people use infertility. Before a person can get pregnant, and it's those who are struggling with fertility, they go through years, which is another grieving process, years of not being able to even conceive. And I also honor those in that pregnancy and infant loss space, because you may not have gotten pregnant, or you may not even given birth and your child had died, but you tried for years to try to be a mother or a father. And those spaces are hard and heavy, as well as those who've experienced pregnancy and infant loss. So to define even pregnancy loss and death in terms of abortion and miscarriage, stillbirth, and fatal diagnosis, the term abortion is the termination of a pregnancy after accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. And as I stated before, miscarriage is a spontaneous expulsion of a human fetus before it's viable, and especially between the 12 and 27 weeks of gestation. Actually, it's 20 weeks. Stillbirth is the birth of a dead fetus, and the fatal diagnosis is a pregnancy in which a baby may perish prior to or shortly after birth due to irreversible illness. Some babies, even with a genetic with genetic challenges, can go on through birth, but die shortly thereafter, and some of them die during pregnancy. So 10 to 20% of persons, an estimate, 10 to 20% estimated of pregnancies will end in miscarriages, and over 24,000 babies born in the US are stillborn. There are a lot of images, especially around Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, when people post about we're 1 in 4. They say one in 4 women will experience a miscarriage in their life, or in not 1 in 4 in their life, but there's 1 in 4 women in this world that would experience a miscarriage. And for people who deal with multiple miscarriages, even just one is devastating and hard, and so and definitely irreversible, in terms of you can't forget it. You will never forget what you experienced in that moment. So let's talk about how it affects everyone. And I'm going to go from the grandparents or family members to the siblings, because there's persons who have children and then try again, and then try again, and they do not have that same experience of having a healthy birth. And then I'm going to go into the parents of the loss. So the impact on the grandparent. They feel powerless and hopeless. Oftentimes they want to fix the situation, and they feel lost too. And this is something that I've seen through my own eyes with my family members. There's so many times where people wanted to fix things for me, and didn't necessarily always have the right things to say. But because they're grieving, they try to say they try to say some things that they think are helpful. And oftentimes, when we're dealing with something, it could be traumatic or it could be grief, we often say things out of nervousness, right? Or our minds are cloudy in judgment, and not understanding. And so it's important to be mindful of everyone in everybody's space. But I acknowledge the grandparent, or I acknowledge the family member when they feel that loss too, because it's not just the individual who, or the mother who felt that loss actually coming out of their stomach, but they experience it too. So how to help them cope is acknowledging the family member or the grandparent's grief. It's referring them to therapy, making sure that they too are supported in whatever way that they need to be supported. Provide them with tools on how to support their child going through loss. I didn't put in a slide because I forgot, and I just remembered that I forgot. But I'll talk about it later. Is the things not to say to individuals who are grieving, because that is very important. So the impact on the sibling. They feel, and these are mainly for younger children, but it could be for older children as well. But the feelings of I did something wrong is felt. Like I didn't the child could feel that I didn't think about the baby enough, or I was thinking other things, and I possibly should have put more more thought and heart into it. They could feel those feelings too. Um, there becomes fears of the unknown to the child. Um, what's going to happen next? Am I going to die? These children are young and they don't necessarily understand grief and loss the way that possibly adults do. They start to have questions about heaven. Where did the baby go? Questions if mommy and daddy are going to die too. There's a whole host of things that these young children can think about or feel that we don't even know if we don't have conversations with them. So ways to help them cope is drawing a picture. There are support groups out there specifically for children who experience grief and loss. You can help them make a memory box or create a memory project of what they thought that their sibling was going to be or who they were going to be, and help them write their feelings down. Really talking about, sometimes in families we don't talk enough about our feelings, and helping them identify their feelings or identify what is happening to them, even within their body, because the body can tell us if something is wrong within, e- even with our emotions. So helping them identify those emotions and those feelings is very important. So how does this grief affect the parents? Women go through postpartum. They do. They go through the sadness. They go through the depression just as much as a mother who delivered a healthy child and goes through maternal postpartum. Those thoughts of frustration, um, the frustration within the pregnancy can happen with couples, right? Or couples, whether they're married or are cohabitating. There could be arguments that happen. They become distant. The statistic shows that, because there was a study that was done in 2010 that showed in couples or married people or couples, cohabitants, I'm sorry, 22% of those individuals, if they experience a miscarriage, separated. And the number becomes higher when they've dealt with a stillbirth or infant loss. So you can see how it affects the relationship. There's depression, and there's often thoughts of suicide or having suicidal ideations. There are feelings of failure and shame, failure that your body couldn't support your child, or even after your child is born that you did something wrong, you didn't check the child every moment of the day, and then you start to feel shame that you wasn't a good parent, you wasn't enough to be there for the live child who died in infant loss, or the child, the fetus that is growing within the belly, or even for the father. You didn't feel that you were supportive enough. You didn't feel that you talked to the belly enough. There's so many thoughts that go inside somebody's head. I talked to my husband a lot about what we've gone through over the years, and he's also felt the failure and the shame. And just like, not even necessarily related to supporting me, but just for himself. Like, did I do something wrong? There's also failure and shame when it comes down to fertility and infertility. My sperm wasn't good enough. You know, they are too a part of the conception process. So it's a lot of shame and blame that goes on that these parents are going through that possibly not even the whole entire world understands. There is built up anxiety of, is this going to happen to me again? What happens when it happens? I know that in my support for, trying to get pregnant each time, in my last 4 or 5, no, my last, yeah, 4 or 5, no, 5 or 6 miscarriages. Um, I've had some support along the way, and each time they like, Leilani, don't allow your anxiety build up. Don't allow your anxiety to build up. And it's like, but I can't help it. I know what I experience, and I know that this experience is going to come with me in every step of the way. So how can I not have this anxiety? How can I not feel um scared? How can I not? When I again, I can't remember the number, which number miscarriage I had. Um I do know it was, I knew it was River, my baby River Jasmine. And uh, I sat in the hospital after I had my DNC, and because my blood pressure wasn't going down, they I kept telling the doctor, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And I was grateful that the doctors or the nurses were paying attention to me at that moment, because I definitely had moments in my fertility journey where the medical system did not pay attention to me. But with this one, I kept feeling like I was having a heart attack. And they took all the EKGs and put me through, all the testing, and he said there's nothing wrong. They sent me home, and I was still having these experiences. But what I chucked it up to be is like, oh, whenever I ate, those feelings went away. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm hungry. And I was just, every single time I would have an anxiety, what it was, an anxiety attack, I would eat. And I was like, this cannot be it. And once I understood what it was, and I started saying, Leilani, you're having anxiety attacks, I was able to then tell myself or help myself stop them from coming as often. They still come a little bit, but definitely not as often as it was back like a few years ago. I experience, and most people who deal with this type of grief experience, a lot of anger. And anger can fester within us emotionally, but also can affect our physical being. Meaning, my blood pressure could go up. Your body changes. It affects every part of you. And just understanding that every person is different in every situation. Each one of my miscarriages were different. I cannot say they were the same. Each one of them are different. How I processed them were similar, but they were different. So how it affects us, each I think after each, you have options of how you deal with when you're having a pregnancy loss. Um, you have options, especially when you're when you're dealing with miscarriages, um, you have options of how do you want to release the baby out of your body, whether it's through a DNC or DNC or DNN, I think it is, um, which is where it's actually a surgery. Then, or you could take a pill and they can release it, and it'll release on its own. There is the option of allowing it to release on its own, just without it being unmedicated. And then there's also another procedure where you do not go under, but it's also a surgical procedure, but it's inpatient. And I've experienced all four of those, and all four of those were very different experiences. Hard nonetheless, but differently physically and emotionally. Very different experiences. So finding the meaning in this human experience, because having a miscarriage, a pregnancy loss, or an infant loss is a part of this human experience, unfortunately. Not everybody experiences it, but it's definitely a part of the human experience. How a parent can cope with their grief. When you're ready, only when you're ready, celebrate your motherhood or fatherhood. I mean to capitalize fatherhood, but celebrate your motherhood and your fatherhood. And it's only when you're ready. You don't want to force yourself to say, I know I'm a mother, regardless if they're alive or not. My husband knows he's a father. I know I'm a mother. This year was Mother's Day was very hard because I could not find the words to allow myself to know that I was a mother. But because I honor my space, I honor myself and wherever I am in terms of my emotions, I said I will get there when I get there. I will get there when I get there. Create a memory box or something to remember your baby of. On the side, you see the top image. That was when I can't say, I had about 5 miscarriages at that point, and a friend of mine, my fertility doula, she was my fertility doula, my grief doula, she was my doula for everything. She suggested that I create something in memory of them. So I created those little dolls, right? My baby River was in the middle because she was the only one at the time that I knew of her sex. The other ones I did not know of their sex. So I created those little dolls, and then a friend of mine gifted me with those crystal angels. So I put them with them. And I also then created that offering bowl. I sculpted it out of clay. And another friend of mine who's into African spirituality and astrology, she said, feed your baby candies. So me and my husband used that offering bowl as a way to feed them candies, because what do children like? They love candy. So that's my offering bowl. It sits on my altar with all of my ancestors that have passed on, and the number has grown. I've decided to actually, at this moment, um, put them all together because my last pregnancy, I was able to cremate my twins. So now they sit and everybody sits in an urn together on my altar. And I then also, me and my husband both have shared tattoos in honor of our lost babies. Um, Seek therapy. Therapy is helpful to those who need it. And therapy is not, oh, in terms of talk therapy, you don't necessarily have to do talk therapy. Your therapy could be Reiki. Your therapy could be listening to being involved in like a wellness workshop. Whatever you consider your therapy to be, if it is not talk, seek it. You can journal. Journaling is soothing for the soul. Meditating is soothing for the soul. Music is life and is helpful. And when you are ready, you can do these things. Be with nature, ground yourself. Remembering that, being with nature and grounding yourselves helps you remind yourself that you are very present in this life right now. Whatever happened, your loss that happened, you are very present with yourself. Join a support group. And I will list support groups in the end, but there are a lot of support groups out there, whether they're faith-based or non-faith-based. There are support groups out there. Learn how to listen to yourself and your needs. Learn your grief language. I think the most important thing that I did during my grieving space, or when I was experiencing the loss, and I definitely learned this. I didn't have these tools with me at first, but I learned how to listen to my heart and not force myself to be something that I wasn't ready to be. And I learned my grief language. How do I grieve, and what do I need in those spaces? Follow up with your doctor's appointments, because not only are you dealing with it mentally and emotionally, you're dealing with it physically. So you want to make sure that your body is still supporting you after the loss. And be gentle with your body. Do not try to force yourself to lose weight or lose that baby weight. Because I look at my stomach every morning. I tell my husband, I was like, I still look pregnant, and I have to remind myself of what I just experienced. I have to remind myself that my body is still transitioning, and I'm not going to force myself to do my mind might trick myself to say, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, I can be in the space and the place that I am in, wherever I am at, because that is important. That's mostly important. So how does the individual who is not grieving support the parent in their grief? Sit with them. Listen to them. Acknowledge their loss. Provide a meal train. And a meal train could look like individuals, friends, family who are cooking meals and sending it to them, or giving them gift cards to restaurants, or ordering it for them and having it delivered. This last miscarriage, I allowed, because I started to learn how to receive. I learned in my grief how to receive love from others in a different way. And I allowed my friends to provide a meal train for me. And that was so helpful for me and my husband, because we didn't have to think about anything. And it was amazing, and it was beautiful, and it was endearing and just supportive. A friend of mine, she provided me and my husband with memory gifts, is keychains that state, in memory of. And she also gave me a bracelet that is with crystals, because I love crystals, and it's in memory of my babies. And don't force anything on them. Don't force them to say, you need to get up. You need to have the will to get up and do. You have to push yourself and just start living. And that's not the space that if they don't so desire it, don't push that on them because it's not for them right now. They have to be in that space. And when I say they, it's the mother and the father, or the couple, the individuals who need to be in that space to be ready to get there when they need to get there. Help them find a pale advocate. I'm one, there's a lot of them out there, but pale advocates are there to help the parents understand their grief, to be there with them in terms of asking medical questions, or dissecting their options when it comes down to having resources when they had a pregnancy or infant loss. um, Helping with the funeral homes, because not all funeral homes know how to deal with this type of loss. And there is a process, making sure that your baby's names are registered, because there is a, for New York State, there is a law that I believe it's after 27 weeks that the baby is not, the names are not, is not considered a baby, right? I believe it's 27 weeks. I want to be sure, but I can always get that information for you afterwards. But there is a certain amount of weeks that the fetus has to be in the mother's stomach for it to be considered um, a that there was life, and that the baby's names could be on a no. Let me backtrack because now I'm thinking about it. It's a stillbirth. The baby has to breathe. No, I'm not even gonna mess with it. I have it written down and I can't, my mind is in a fog, but I will get you that information. But Pell advocates can help you do all of those things. And I apologize for my loss of memory. I'm chucking it up to my pregnancy loss today. But well, I'm going to go back and talk about the things not to say to individuals who experience this type of loss. Some people, and these are harsh things. Some people, again, I don't know if it was intended or not intended, right? But the only way you can do is have conversations with people. But some people have said it wasn't a real baby. You didn't want it anyway. And these are people who were possibly experienced abortions. And again, no judgment with individuals who have experienced abortions, because it is a real thing, and it is somebody else's experience. No judgment. Um, at least you weren't, some people say, at least you weren't further along. It wasn't meant to be. Well, at least you know that you can get pregnant. Maybe you should have or shouldn't have. It's God's timing as to why this happened. I understand how you feel. Maybe you do. Maybe you've experienced this type of loss, but you don't understand, or you don't necessarily understand how that person's feeling because you're not them. Maybe you should adopt. These are things you just should not say, because, and even though having, saying that maybe you should adopt, yes, possibly, but you don't know what it takes unless you're in it. What it takes to be ready for adoption. That is a whole process. And for some people, it takes years to get to the point where they have not given up, but they have accepted that they cannot get pregnant, or this is not their journey to motherhood. That takes a level of acceptance, because to be able to adopt, you have to accept and acknowledge and grieve that particular journey to motherhood in order for you to love a child that did not come from you, that does not have your genes. So that's a level of acceptance that you have to be ready for. Some people are ready off the bat, but then there's others who are not in that space. So that goes back to the notion of don't force anything on any person. So here are some resources that that I have created. There's also, I have resources on my website that I'll show you at the end, where there's a Strong Enough support group. So Strong Enough support group is my support group that I host once a month. I have changed it from the second Thursday to the fourth Thursday of the month because my schedule has changed this year. And it is a non-denominational open space online that any person, mother, father, any person, grandparent, because I've had mother-daughter combinations. I had mother-father combinations. I've had just single persons who have experienced abortions, infant loss, miscarriage. Any person can come in this space and talk and be and experience, listen to music, and feel free to just be in this space, experiencing their loss, talking about it with a person who've experienced it, had a shared experience themselves. There's also Sisters in Loss. That's a huge organization that supports women of color in their loss. There's Haley's Hope Foundation. It serves Orange County and surrounding counties. There's grievingdads.com. They do offer support. There's NAMI, who offers mental health support throughout the state, but definitely within our areas. And lastly, this is my contact information. My website is riverrise.org. I do have more information about pregnancy, infant loss. I have a pregnancy loss workplace toolkit that I'm trying to push, where I believe that workspaces, organizations, businesses, they should include pregnancy loss in their policy, because in workplace policies, most of the time, bereavement is considered they don't have written language to say that a pregnancy loss is considered bereavement time. A live person, somebody who's breathed, and an infant loss can be considered, but pregnancy loss is not. And if we don't have the right language to support it, the individuals would have to use their vacation, sick, personal time to grieve, and also to heal their bodies. And it's not even considered you can't even use oh, what's the word? You can't even use the you know oh God, my
Your long-term care or
well,
family
you can
care.
use the family paid act leave, because I know that my husband's using that right now, but it's after birth. When a person gives birth, I can't even think of the word, but you can't even use that time. And you have to be able to we need to be able to support individuals who are going through different types of losses. And this type of loss is not just emotional, it's physical. It takes time for the women, for their body to heal. It's not even just the healing. You have to go through the surgery. You have to go through the process. And a person should not be in a workspace dealing with that. So I advocate for individuals, for companies and organizations to add this language to their workplace policy so that they could support their workers in this space. So if you needed to contact me, that's my phone number, that is my email, that's my website. I do a lot of different things, but pregnancy and infant loss is really, truly dear to my heart. So,
Yeah, so let's
I
go ahead.
can I do one more thing before, because it's only like less than 2 minutes, but it's a song, Love Beautiful chorus, and oh, I didn't, hold on, because I have to now do, how do you do the present? No, it's the Zoom that allows could you hear the song? No. Yeah, we have to present. No, don't worry about it.
Maybe can you click on autoplay and see if maybe it works that way?
Well, you as the, hold on. Why does this, no, don't even worry about it.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's like share sound and I have to stop sharing. That's what it is.
Mm,
And that's all that it is.
okay. Well, Leilani, thank you so much. This is we can definitely tell how, I don't know if passionate is the right word here, but definitely you know, I can feel your sensitivity, and that's very beautiful. And at the same time, I'm very admired of your strength and that you're able to talk about this, you know, with all of us going through what you're going on right now. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for having done this for us today. And here are some comments. It says, okay, the difference between a stillbirth and a spontaneous abortion, it's 20 weeks as per the Centers of Disease Control. So I just wanna clarify that. So Centers for Disease Control, CDC, they make that differentiation. Before 20 is a spontaneous abortion, after 20 is still.
Yes, after 20, yes.
Yeah. And I would like, here's another one. I would like to suggest an add to the resources list. Postpartum Support International. They have support groups for miscarriage, TFMR, stillbirth, infant loss, and subsequent pregnancy after losses. So thank you so much for that. That's good to know. And the New York Milk Bank bereavement page. That's a good.
Yes. So I have on my website, there under all my resources, I do have a one pager that shows like where you can donate milk, where you can like all the funeral homes in the area who understand and know how to deal with a pregnancy loss or infant loss and cremation or any type of a burial. Then there's also, I have New York state laws that are included in the resource one pager, and also other support services that you can use. So that's on my website, and I will put it in riverrise.org/resources, and you can find that there.
Thank you. And then we have two notes here. And I know your mom was listening, Leilani, so she got that link on time, and she wants to say that you are phenomenal and you make her very proud as your mother. That's very sweet. Thank you, Reina, for that. And then thank you, Leilani, for your compassionate and courageous work. And they're asking if they can share your information with local Rockland peer supporters.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it's riverrise.org. Riverrise.
Yes, riverrise.org.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if we have any follow-up questions. Let me look here. What types of self-care do you find helpful in coping with losses?
My self-care is definitely music. I tend to dive into wellness workshops, whether it's dealing with the mental, the body, or even holistic wellness workshops. I do Reiki, and I don't personally do Reiki, but I allow a friend of mine to do Reiki on me. Um, I work with a lot of my astrologer to help me just figure out my next steps. I drink to get my body back. I drink. I deal with my doula. She's also a herbalist and a nurse practitioner. And she's also a midwife. She sells herbal teas and uh steam herbs, and I do that to help balance my body. I definitely check in with my OBGYN. I also I've learned, because I've learned to sit with myself and just acknowledge every feeling that is going on. If I need to take a trip, I'm going to take a trip. If I need to be by myself and not be around my husband, and I communicate those things with him, I do that. And I've learned to be very, very gentle with myself, because one thing that I know I've experienced suicidal ideations. I know I've experienced those things, so I know how gentle I have to be with myself. So it's important to know yourself in this space, and to be wherever you're at.
Mhm. You know, we have only like 2 minutes left. And let me see, there is another question here. Any suggested reliable resources for maternal and infant mortality stats? And I can answer that if you want me to. So
Yeah.
there is the vital statistics, the New York State Maternal and Child Health Dashboard, and you can divide that by county. It's and also vital statistics. There are a lot of governmental statistics websites that you can actually go to for that. Something that I can tell you right now, it's 1 in 175 births. That means each year about 21,000 babies are stillborn in the United States. So believe it or not, it's a lot of them. And we don't talk about this, you know, as women, we all want to be super women, and we hide our feelings often. We don't talk about postpartum depression, even less about losing our babies and having miscarriages and a lot of these feelings. And maybe it's a topic that we should talk about more often, and, you know, reduce the stigma about these things, because a lot of women can be going through things and we don't even know, because as Leilani said, we don't even get family leave, or we don't get a new mom or new father time, nothing like that. And we just have to keep going on, and it's not easy. So thank you so much, Leilani, for being here
Thank you.
today. I'm amazed by your strength and your courage. It's exemplary, to say the least. Okay, and thank you to all of our attendees. I'm sure that you're going to be talking about this. And if you know anyone who needs information like this, you know, to get the courage they need to learn resources on how to cope, how to keep moving forward, not to give up, never surrender. This is great information for them. So thank you so much for that. And Leilani, you talked about Reiki a little bit, and that will be our topic for next week, the healing powers of Reiki. So if you want to join us, Leilani, you are invited, your mom too, all of our attendees, and I will see you next week at 12. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.